What are some of the scariest things you've experienced while traveling? Have you ever come across a place so eerie it made your skin crawl? And what about a mirror that seemed to remember you long after you had looked away? Today, I will share with you the horrifying story of Kurokami Village, a place where mirrors hold more than just reflections and the shadows dance with secrets. Our story begins with a chilling warning from an unlikely source, a seemingly ordinary taxi driver. The year was any typical day. I was exploring the remote corners of Japan, seeking offbeat stories for my work as a travel journalist. I'd trekked through abandoned tunnels, uncovered ghost towns, and even ventured into the infamous cursed forest of Aokigahara. But none of these experiences had prepared me for what was to come. As I sat in the taxi heading towards Kurokami Village, the driver casually chatted about anything and everything. It was the type of small talk that can make a long journey feel shorter and a stranger seem like an old friend. Then suddenly, he stopped. His tone changed from casual to grave, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. "Don't go to Kurokami Village," he said, his voice dropping to a low, urgent tone. Startled by his sudden shift in demeanor, I asked why. Surely there was a reason behind his warning, and I was determined to find out. But the driver shook his head slowly, his expression troubled. He hesitated, as if struggling with whether or not to tell me, but eventually he did. "The roads are fine. The people are polite," he began, his gaze still fixed on the road. "But the mirrors in that village, you should never look into them." At first I thought he was joking, perhaps trying to add a spooky anecdote to make the journey more thrilling. I laughed, assuming he was trying to be funny. But when I turned to respond, I saw a strange, almost imperceptible crack in his eyes. It was as though a fleeting emotion, fear, had momentarily flashed across his face before being replaced by a mask of calm. Intrigued and slightly unnerved, I pressed him for more. But he remained silent, driving in tense quietness for a few moments. Finally, when he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "You wouldn't understand," he said quietly. "Just know that if you see those mirrors, don't look into them. If you do," he paused, swallowing hard, "those mirrors won't show you back." I couldn't help but shiver at his words. There was something about his tone, his choice of words, that sent a chill down my spine. Despite his warning, curiosity got the better of me. I thanked him for the ride and stepped out of the cab with a mix of apprehension and excitement. As the car pulled away, I turned toward Kurokami Village, my heart beating a little faster than usual. I had to admit his warning had piqued my interest. What exactly was so wrong with the mirrors in this village? What did he mean when he said they wouldn't show me back? With these questions echoing in my mind, I delved deeper into the village, eager to uncover the truth. As I stepped into the village, it was as if I'd stepped into a different era. Time seemed to slow down here, the pace dictated by the gentle sway of ancient trees and the distant chirping of crickets. The houses were traditional Japanese structures, some with tatami mats and sliding paper doors, others with thatched roofs and wooden pillars. Despite the village's tranquility, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled in my stomach like a dense fog. The silence was heavy, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. My exploration led me to the center of the village, where a cluster of old women sat quietly on a porch. They seemed to appear out of nowhere, their presence adding to the eerie atmosphere. When I politely asked them about the village and its mirrors, their response was a chorus of silence. They didn't answer. Instead, they turned their heads slowly, their gazes unwavering, their eyes filled with an unsettling stillness. It was as though they were not human, but rather statues frozen in time. Fearing I might be disturbing them, I quickly apologized and moved on. As I continued my walk, I noticed children playing nearby. Their laughter, which should have been innocent and carefree, rang in my ears with an eerie quality. When I approached them, their play stopped abruptly. They stared at me with wide, unblinking eyes, their faces devoid of any childhood joy. Then, without a word, they turned and fled, disappearing into the maze of houses. I found myself in a courtyard surrounded by weathered stone lanterns. Each lantern was adorned with intricate carvings of mythical creatures, but my attention was drawn to something else. In front of each lantern was a hand-sized mirror. The mirrors were tarnished, their surfaces clouded and warped. Still, I couldn't help but lean in, hoping to catch a glimpse of my distorted reflection. But as I peered into the mirrors, I saw nothing but darkness. It was as if they were empty voids, sucking in the light and my hopes of finding answers. With a sigh, I turned to leave, deciding to seek out the village elder for more insights. As I walked away, I heard whispers carried on the wind. "Don't let it follow you back," they hissed. Fear tightened its grip on me, urging me to flee the village. I wanted to run, to get as far away from Kurokami Village as possible. But something kept me rooted to the spot. It was as if an invisible force was holding me back, compelling me to stay. After what felt like an eternity, I finally tore my gaze away from the mirrors and fled the courtyard. I needed to get out of that village. Now, as I hurried along, the whispers grew louder, their voices echoing in my ears. Panicked, I quickened my pace, my heart pounding against my ribs. In the distance I saw a building, a beacon of hope in my darkening world. As I drew closer, I realized it was an inn. Relief washed over me. I was certain that inside the inn I would find warmth, safety, perhaps even answers. Rushing up the steps, I pushed open the door and stepped inside. An old woman sat behind a counter, her face etched with wrinkles that told tales of a life well lived. Yet there was something about her cloudy eyes that unsettled me. She regarded me silently for a moment, and then in a voice as frail as rustling leaves, she asked me, "Are you lost?" I nodded, hoping she could offer me more than just directions. Perhaps she knew the secrets of the mirrors, the history of this village, but as I voiced my questions, I saw a flicker of fear cross her face. She became agitated, her hands trembling. Then, in a hushed tone, she said, "This village has its ways. You should leave before sunset." Confused and alarmed by her reaction, I tried to press her further, but she cut me off, her voice firm despite her shaking hands. "Leave," she repeated, "before sunset." Her words were laced with urgency, as though she was afraid someone might overhear us. I spent that evening in a small room, the walls adorned with faded paintings of mythical creatures. The innkeeper had given me one rule: don't look at your reflection after midnight, not even by accident. I tried to dismiss her words as mere superstition, but as midnight chimed, fear tightened its icy fingers around my heart. I tossed restlessly in bed, unable to sleep. Suddenly a soft scratching sound reached my ears. I sat up, my eyes straining to see in the darkness. The scratching came from the opposite wall, from the mirror. Slowly, tentatively, I got out of bed and walked towards the mirror. My heart pounded in my chest. The scratching continued, slow and deliberate, like fingernails dragging across glass. I grabbed my phone, its faint light illuminating the mirror's surface. There it was again, the sound and the sight. At first my reflection stared back, pale and tired. Then the mouth in the reflection began to move. I didn't move. It smiled and whispered, "Now I remember you." The glass rippled like water, and I saw hundreds of faces staring back, not just mine. They were every traveler, every villager, every person who'd ever looked too long, all trapped inside, their eyes begging, their mouths stretched into eternal grins. I stumbled back, crashing the mirror with my fist. It shattered, sending shards flying, each one reflecting a different me, each one smiling, each one whispering the same words, again and again. "Now we all remember you." When the first rays of sunlight touched my skin, I fled the inn, raced through the village, desperate to escape the clutches of Kurokami Village. The road stretched ahead, leading me away from the nightmarish village. But as I walked, the horror of the previous night lingered, heavy in the air. Today, as I sit in my apartment miles away from Kurokami Village, I try to piece together the events of that fateful journey. But the truth remains elusive, hidden behind a veil of fear and uncertainty. Yet sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, when the moon hangs heavy in the sky, I hear whispers in my ear. "Now we remember you." And in the morning, when I gaze into the mirror, I see a fingerprint on the inside of the glass. a constant reminder of the horrors I faced. Every night since then, my reflection has smiled at me just a moment before I do. And I can't help but wonder, is it just a trick of the light or something more sinister? Is that village haunting me, or am I forever trapped in its terrifying embrace?